Hi, and welcome to Cover Brand, where we cover all things branding, marketing, and advertising to help you understand what the hell branding is and how it works to grow your business. Welcome and welcome back. I'm Ethan Decker, your host. And today I have a dear old friend of mine, Tanya Strickland. Tanya, how are you?
I'm good, Ethan. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Where are you even calling from today?
I am calling from East Knoxville, Tennessee, actually a little town called New Market, which most people don't even, I didn't know about when I lived here 20 years ago. I had no idea about this too, but we're basically East Knoxville, a little rural area.
Not the swanky rural area, the funky rural area.
Yeah, we are on the farmy rural area. I like to refer to my abode as the Wacken Z Ranch.
Nice. Nice, man. I can only aspire to live on a ranch. So congratulations to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really happy. We have our nice little pocket of acreage off the main road, so it's very nice and peaceful.
Well, you and I know each other from back when it was not so peaceful. We worked together at the Integer Group, a shopper marketing agency down in Denver. And that was hair on fire days with no ranches in sight.
No, absolutely, and definitely hair on fire. It's kind of nice to put things into perspective. In my current jobs, people will get panicked about things being pressure, and I'm like, this is a day off. This is a day off. Having no idea, but it's good. I mean, we live with the scars, and just the other day, got a little bit of kudos for saving some money on something, and I basically I was trained well by Gillette.
Right, right. To shave pennies. Ha ha ha.
Exactly.
I had to. So since those halcyon days, you're up to something new now. What is it you're up to that leads into your question?
Well, I correlate my years of experience in production at Integer and agencies where I would procure things for other people and decided, hey, I'll do that for myself and for some other, especially smaller businesses. So my wife and I established Zocco Print and Promo initially to help out the volunteer fire department where she worked because they needed some t-shirts. And we've kind of grown and expanded, and we're part of ASI. So we've got access to suppliers all over the country, all over the globe.
Nice.
And it's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun to do it for myself instead of being like the middleman between a client.
Yeah, I can relate. I love building applied brand science as my own brand, as opposed to building some agency's brand or not even quite building their brand, but working for them for the sake of building Gillette's brand. Granted, I still help Gillette, so to speak. I actually did do some stuff with Procter and Gamble recently, but it's fun to build your own brand, and it's harrowing as well, as you now know.
Yes, it is. There's a lot more challenges that I'm facing that I didn't have to face basically when I had the arranged marriage between like Procter and Integer. And, I knew who I was going to work with. I just needed to facilitate the creative.
Yeah. So Zocco is your new venture, Zocco
Promo.
Print and Promo, Zocco Print and Promo. Okay. So you've got some kind of challenges, I'm sure, being a new company. You probably have 100 challenges, but what particularly do you want to talk about today?
Lots of challenges. The biggest one, though, is as a little brand, we're new. How do we get our name out there? How do we start to get some traction when we're faced with competition from really big brands that are established, that have large ad spend? You see them all the time, for imprints, custom ink, those types of apparel suppliers and print suppliers. How do we fight with the big guys just to get our little piece of that pie?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. It's a classic question. I've got a couple thoughts for you. One of them is, as you know, there's usually a long lead time between when people hear about you or discover you and when they actually might hire you for something. not everyone walks around every day thinking about custom printed apparel and merch and gear and stuff. But then the need arises, and then they look around and think about who they know. So a couple thoughts for you. One of them is that one's called sometimes it's called the 95-5 rule, which is 95% of your potential audience isn't even in the market to buy right now. They're just living their lives. And then maybe 5% of your potential market is ready to buy. So a lot of the times what we see is people investing in uh, what's called bottom of funnel kind of marketing or demand something marketing. There's some trendy new terms, but basically it's shopper marketing. When people are in the market to buy, they type in something in their search engine or they go to their brain's search engine and they say, I need to get custom t-shirts. And then as you say, Vistaprint and Custom Ink and others can buy those search terms a lot more easily than you can because they've got the budget. But so how do you either stay in their mind in the 95% of the time when they're not ready to buy, or, and this is another trick, how would you become a big fish in a small pond? Because you can't really compete with Custom Ink all around the world and with everything Custom Ink does and bid against them on like Google AdWords for custom apparel, right? I mean, they're a big company. I don't know how long has Custom Ink been around? Do you even know?
It was around when I was out in Colorado. I know that much. So it's been probably 10 years or more.
Yeah, they have a head start. But you said you started with the fire department.
Yeah, we started with Rattlesnake Fire Department, Fire Protection District, as it
Nice,
called out, all that.
nice. Do you still create merch for them?
Yeah, we do. And actually, our connection there moved over to the Denver Fire Department. And so, pretty much every year, we've been supplying their mechanics. We came off a dirt loader for them, which is pretty badass, if I say so myself. And so, they've been getting swag for that pretty much on a yearly basis. And also, the Colorado Emergency Vehicle Technicians Association came up with that. And Hills Fire and Speed Shop.
Nice.
It's kind of
Nice. Okay, so that all flowed out of that original fire department work, fire district work. Okay, this is a great example of how it's kind of word of mouth, right? And it spreads from wherever you threw the first seed on the ground, and it spreads out from there. And you can use that as a strategy to grow a very small business in a way that a big brand can't. So a big brand is going to buy the national coverage, Custom Ink or Spreadshirt. They'll buy the national AdWords for custom t-shirts or custom merch. But what if you decided to just start all your effort with that nexus point and either focus on that region and do all your work for all the businesses and small businesses around that fire district, because people will see that stuff on each other. They'll know each other. They might even do business with each other and say, hey, where did you get those mugs? Those color changing mugs. Those are really cool. They're white when the water is cold. And then when you put hot tea or coffee in it, it turns a different color and reveals your logo or something. And then you just focused on that one region, you could be the big fish in that tiny, tiny pond. And it would build on the word of mouth because people will talk to each other about where did they get that cool merch.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And now that you're bringing it up, it kind of ties to, I remember back when we were at the agency, and there were times that the way that we got new business, not necessarily going out and trying to court that new business, but we have the client we took care of,
Yep.
Proctor. They went to another company, CPG company, and they had an opportunity to bring Integer on board. And so that makes perfect sense.
Right. Right. So you could start with a local place and you could become the biggest fish in that tiny, tiny pond. And this is a strategy a lot of small businesses, they kind of have to do anyway. They start locally. Izzy is a sparkling juice, really. Sparkling juice in Colorado, and everybody in Colorado knows it because every soccer game is full of these little 8-ounce cans of Izzy, and it's cute and it's pretty and it looks like Olipop or, those cute bubbly brands. But they started in Colorado and they saturated the Colorado market because they didn't have distribution in other places and they couldn't compete against the big dogs. So so starting with a geographically tight market is one way to become a bigger fish by creating a smaller pond. Another thing you can do is you can decide you're going to do the merch for fire districts and fire departments because maybe those folks talk to each other, or maybe you learn something about the ins and outs of that trade that help you spread like wildfire through that industry. And you become known for the the merch for fire departments and police officers and other uniformed officers of some sort. And you could do that by showcasing the kick-ass work you already did for the fire district that you already worked for, and then go from place to place to place. And at least it gives you a target, and it gives you a tight target where you can focus your marketing efforts. Because again, those fire departments, they don't think about merch most of the days. They probably think about equipment and training and, their physiques, hopefully. Do you remember we had like the hot fireman's calendar sold at Integer once as a fundraiser?
Oh yeah, bought one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hot, sexy firemen and firewomen posing with their gear and half their clothes off. It was awesome. Which is another point we'll get to in a second. But you can, again, focus your target by choosing something that's kind of arbitrary, but nonetheless gives you the ability to saturate that market more and be top of mind more in a small subcategory or submarket so that, for the 95% of the time when they're not thinking about merch, you are still kind of in their lives in the background, dropping them stuff, leaving them notes, sending them a couple little gifts or, sample merch. And then in that 5% of the time when they finally do decide, you know what, we have to do our fundraiser. We need some merch, or we need t-shirts again, or we need new trucker hats. They'll think of you, and they'll think of you because you're the merch company that the other fireplaces go to, the other police departments go to. And so we're going to go with Zocco as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does, absolutely. And actually, there's a lot of, at least around here, there's a lot of movement. We have a lot of volunteer stations, and then we've got some smaller city stations, and then, of course, Knoxville being larger, and then they contract with rural metro to handle the county areas. And so, yeah, we've gotten connections through it started with one of the volunteer departments. The guy went from the volunteer department to a city department, and
Nice.
it's now with rural metro.
Nice.
And we're kind of working our way in. There's some competition with a uniform provider.
Yep.
But again, we're trying to, yep, they can do uniforms. They do their embroidery in-house. That's their jam. But they're probably overcharging you for things like t-shirts because
Yep.
they're going to be sourcing those out. And that's something that I'm hoping, we can come in with a little bit lower overhead, and it is more of our jam. We can take the t-shirts with, what? You can have the uniforms. That's what you do. You're a uniform company. We'll take the t-shirts and the sweatshirts.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And also, I think offering a little bit of extra white glove service, so to speak. A lot of the smaller businesses don't have graphic support. So they'll have maybe a ping or a JPEG that they piece together using, I'm not going to name brand names, but not professional level software for graphics
Sure.
creation. And
Sure.
offering, will help. A lot of times I'll do the artwork tweaking without charging them. Typically it's $75 an hour from some of the big guys.
Yeah.
But in exchange for that, I get a little bit of brand loyalty. I mean, I'm not holding their logos hostage, but at the same
Yep.
time, there's some brand loyalty because I've helped them out.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do this for you. Just order your stuff for me.
Yeah. So that's what are the ways that you can compete against and beat the big guys? How can you fight unfair? What can you do that big guys can't? And it's that personal service, that personal touch. So there are three things we're talking about already. One of them is, as I said, focusing geographically and just allowing word of mouth to work by saturating a specific area around your best customer or customers. And we talked about Izzy doing that as a soft drink. A surprising example of that was Twitter. When Twitter was launched, it's technically locationless because it's an online platform, but it grew through word of mouth in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. And then it leapt across the whole country and grew through word of mouth around MIT and Harvard and all the colleges in Boston. And there was a very high level of geographic spread for Twitter. So number one, don't try and be the tiny fish in the big pond. Don't try and swallow the whole pond. Carve off a tiny pond and be the big fish in that. The second one is focus on a specific industry or vertical or category or something and be known as the merch for fire, period. And whether, again, it's a little arbitrary, but it's a great foothold, a great toehold. An example of that, you've probably heard of Canva, the
Yeah.
software for creating graphics and whatnot. It's like the low to free cost Photoshop. It was founded in Australia, and they started by focusing exclusively on offering design services for high school yearbooks. That's it. They created a tiny pond and they focused on high school yearbooks exclusively. They didn't think of everyone that needs printing services or design services. They printed it themselves. They bought a printer and put it in their own living room or maybe their parents' living room. I forget. They were very young, the founders of that. And the free design services were tailored exclusively to high school kids and high school teachers who had no graphic design experience but wanted something free to lay out their yearbook pages in. And they could focus, and once they focused and word spread, they could become the biggest fish in this tiny yearbook pond. And it was a massively important strategy for them to grow. So you could, again, create a smaller pond either geographically or create a smaller pond by picking a vertical almost arbitrarily, but maybe one that's got a little business sense or that you understand you have a little bit of a business advantage in, and carve off that small pond and use that as your first place to grow. And then the third thing we hit upon a little bit is this notion of what can you do that the big guys can't? And I love to use the phrase fight unfair. What can you do that the big ones can't? For you, it's personal touches. For you, it's remembering people's and clients' actual names. For you, maybe you can still afford or think about sending funny or interesting gifts to people to stay top of mind, or just even funny stickers. I am amazed, Tanya, at how my merch game is kind of important for my brand strategy business, because people love my silly little logo, the frog with antlers, and they love my catchphrase, Science AF, and they wear those shirts and they use those mugs, and it makes them remember me at all, which is a lot of the battle in the 95% of the time when they're totally not in the market to buy my services. So similarly, what can you do that's unfair, that's true to you, and that would be something that, Custom Ink or Zazzle can't do? What do you have you probably have an example of one or two of those things you're already starting to do because it just comes naturally.
Yeah, I mean, we've done thank you gifts, which we've sent out to the clients that we had. So we've been working on coming up with something to keep top of mind. I hadn't come up with it in stickers yet, so that's something I need to put on the burner to do with promotions. I think that would be huge. I do like the idea of the thank you gifts, and even things that don't have to be something that's an expensive investment.
Right.
I like it that people actually use, but sometimes even just touching base, just saying hi, or reminding if you remember something specific about a client, reaching out to them on that. So they putting things in my calendar. I know like there's a specific event coming up that they previously had attended or shown at, making sure I'll reach out ahead of time and just see how they're doing.
Right.
Check in. And then, a lot of, I actually have had times where I just honestly just said hi, just checking in, seeing how you're doing, and had someone go, I'm glad that you actually reached out because we need something coming up.
Bingo, bingo. And if you turn it into like a friendly little hello and you do a little research or double check your notes to see what were their kids' names, or did someone have a lacrosse tournament, or were they for me recently, I'm talking to someone and he's a big fan of Arsenal, the soccer team from England, and Arsenal is in the championships in the Champions League, or they're in the quarterfinals. So Arsenal had a big match yesterday, and I had connected with him last week, but then yesterday I sent him a little funny meme about Arsenal fans hating life while they were watching the match because they always worry they're going to screw it up. And so like I sent him a little note saying, "Good luck today. I hope Arsenal does well." And it's a big brand can't do that, right?
They think they can, but what you get is something that's very, you could tell it's AI generated, or it's a fill in the blank type of communication, and
Yep.
people can see.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a genuineness.
Yeah, genuineness.
Yeah.
Well, I hate the word authenticity, but everyone talks about authenticity. It's just real. It's just honest. It's genuine. You're right. So okay, so to wrap up, we got 3 ideas for Zocco Print and Promo, your new baby brand in the universe. Number 1, carve off a smaller geographic pond to be a big fish in and let word of mouth work there, right? Number 2, carve off a smaller sub-vertical or subcategory, like you're just going to go after fire departments. And there are thousands of them. So that'll keep you busy for a while, right? Um,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. And then number 3, fight unfair and do those little things that a little brand can do that a big brand can't, to stay in mind and to be more, you know, thought kindly of than the big anonymous brands. Does that help? Does it seem like it might be helpful for Zocco?
Oh, very helpful. Yeah, very helpful because it gives me, yeah, I kind of feel like I've been having a shotgun approach, um, because you see little opportunities and you have to be able to evaluate realistically what would be, what's something that I can actually achieve and handle versus, shooting for something and trying to compete out of them. I like the concept of making the pond smaller
Yeah.
to become the big fish.
Yeah. And so that can help if you actually do search engine marketing with your targeting, with your AdWords, with your messages, with what you literally say in the stuff. It can help you with cold outreach. It can certainly help you with, referrals. If you call the fire folks or the former clients and you say, "Hey, do you know any other folks in other fire districts?" I'm betting they will. And the fact that you've got merch and stuff from fire departments or for fire districts that you can showcase to the new folks, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And, referrals are always helpful. So being able to throw around the big names. I mean, I'm fortunate that I have some big names I can actually put out there. So I need to use that to my advantage.
There you go. Fight unfair, Tanya.
Fight unfair. I like it.
Awesome. Good. Well, I know we're going to have some conversations about applied brand science merch later. And maybe we'll do a follow-up episode and talk more about that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
That'd be a lot of fun. I've got some old crappy merch that is no bueno, and I'm going to need some new stuff because I do love sending people high quality stuff that they love.
Exactly. They love it. They can use it. They keep it top of mind. We'll take care of you.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for the chat, Tanya. I will talk to you later.
Likewise. Be catching up with you.
Do you feel like you should be getting more horsepower out of your brand, but you're not sure how? Bring it into the shop for a quick and affordable brand tune-up. We'll run some diagnostics, we'll make some quick fixes, and give you recommendations for bigger repairs or improvements you can do later. Learn more about the brand tune-up at appliedbrandscience.com.